Good morning, everyone. Good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are, and welcome to this week's weekly energy boost. It's a lovely Monday morning here with David. For those of you who live in the US, it's Memorial Day, so you're probably chilling, relaxing, maybe out of your routine. You may be listening to this episode later in the week. It may be the middle of November when you're listening to this episode. No matter what, we're very happy you can join us today. We are talking about, or I'll give you the title of today's episode. It is Eat, Pray, Judge. The energy of elevating. And here we are. We are now in the second week of the month of Gemini. We are infused. We're being given this really powerful energy. And one of the gifts that Geminis have that we can all be infused with this month is the gift of communication. Geminis are known for being gifted communicators, writers, speakers. Mercury is the planet of communication. So having that strength and that concentrated gift within each one of them, of course, this month we want to download that, but being a gifted communicator can be a double-edged sword. And we want to work this week on not allowing the way that we communicate with others, the tendency to see the glass half full instead of half empty, to keep those weapons at bay, because the tendency is to blab, let's say. That's the gift of gab has its benefits and its costs, and one of them is saying too much, saying the wrong thing, not being sensitive. And this is really our week to hone in on those gifts, to be able to offer constructive criticism in a merciful way. And we're going to look at today, why do we tend to criticize? What's happening for us internally when that happens? And what are some approaches, some remedies to when the desire to criticize, sometimes it's even an unconscious lashing out with criticism. What do we do when it happens? And how do we train ourselves to rein that tendency in and really use our critical eye for good? Weekly Energy Boost is a 7-day spiritual weather forecast where David and I, and sometimes our guests, provide the most powerful and practical tools we think can help our listeners navigate the coming 7 days from the wisdom of Kabbalah. Every episode ends up revealing powerful wisdom and tools that you can use anytime. And this week is no different. I think about the person who's listening in November and it's not necessarily connected to the weekly energy. I find that whatever random class I'm listening to or lecture or book I open always has exactly what I need to hear. David, I'm interested in what's going through your mind as you're hearing me reveal this week's gifts, but I have some stuff I want to share. Where do you want to go first?
As you were speaking, I was thinking about sometimes what trips us up is that we try to be perfect, or we want to understand everything about our spirituality. We want to know the big picture, the small picture, why we're doing it. We want to be motivated. We want to have control over our lives in a way that makes us feel comfortable. But one of the things that we've learned is sometimes you just need to take it 10 minutes at a time, 1 hour at a time, 1 day at a time. And one of the things that I like to think about is, how do I increase the positive energy and consciousness and decrease the negativity? So as you were talking about criticism, what first came to my mind is our tendency to comment when we feel lack. When we feel lack inside of ourselves, and this probably most often comes up in relationships, when we feel lack, we have a tendency to say something. We can put that under the commenting category. And comments are some of the most dangerous and prolific forms of creating negative energy, because one word that is coming from a place of lack creates, let's say, a negative force or negative entity. But when we're saying hundreds of words or thousands of words to somebody because we're upset or we're afraid or we're angry or we're trying to control, we create all of this negative energy. And if you think about what your day is like, one of your goals should just be, how do I minimize and diminish the amount of negative energy I'm creating and maximize and increase the positive? And so if we talk about diminishing the negative, the greatest amount of negative energy being created is from our words. It's from our words and, of course, from our thoughts, negative thoughts. But usually the negative thoughts then manifest through the words, because we know that the mouth is what's called malchut, and it manifests what comes from the keter, which is the thoughts, the highest point of the 10 dimensions. So very simple. Like if a person had one practical thing to take away for this week, it's you may not know where you're going or what you're doing. You may not know what the big picture is. You may be going through something and you're trying to figure it out. One of the most powerful ways to take action now is just to ask yourself, how do I diminish the negative forces I'm creating through my thoughts, my words especially, and my actions, and how to increase or enhance the positivity, which just means getting outside my comfort zone, going against my nature, and all the things that we've talked about before, doing the things that I do not want to do, but I know that they are positive and they reveal light.
What's interesting is that when you talk about creating positive energy, you think of positivity. You don't even have to be on a spiritual path to understand that positive energy is light, it's freedom, it's being a force for good. And we've been talking about that in these last couple episodes, doing the things that are, like you said, against our nature or out of our comfort zone. We talked even about how it's usually those parts of ourselves that we want to hide that we can actually do the most with and reveal the most with. And this is a week that the Kabbalists teach that we can elevate, that we can shed those limiting and negative behaviors for the sake of elevating ourselves. So I'm listening to while you're talking and thinking, well, I'm criticizing somebody. I see what's wrong with them. That's their problem. It's not my problem. So bringing it into the using our words, using our behaviors to elevate ourselves is really key. You just said something powerful, because when we think about elevating ourselves, I think most people on the spiritual path think of all the big things, the fears and the anxiety, the big challenges that we're all going through, or the stuff that we know we need to transform, which seems large and it seems almost overwhelming at times. It almost feels like we have to boil the ocean to transform ourselves. Mm-hmm. And I think one of the things that we're talking about here is the value of realizing the transformation of the small things at any moment of opportunity you have. Collecting those pennies to create the wealth is one of the most powerful ways of doing the spiritual work. People look for splashy stuff. People look for, even when it comes to wealth creation or the jumps that people want to make in their careers, they don't realize that if you start at the age of 16 and start making a little bit of money and saving it and investing it properly and having a discipline, you will become a millionaire by the time you're in your late 20s or early 30s. People kind of think, no, I'm just going to wait. Something incredible is going to happen when I'm 30 and then I'm going to be successful. And it's the little details, it's the little energies you reveal and the negative energies you prevent yourself from creating every day that actually makes you a successful spiritual being. And you do not have to put so much pressure on yourself to cram for the exam spiritually. Because oftentimes we do nothing and then we try to do something very extreme and it doesn't work. And we know this also from like spiritual holidays that we have to connect to or prepare for. We don't often talk about it much on the Weekly Energy Boost, but there are days of powers, windows in time that the soul elevates. And if you are studying deeper Kabbalah, you often feel this anxiety as those days approach because you want to be prepared. And what we're noticing is that instead of preparing 3 months in advance, 4 months in advance, people are preparing 3 to 4 weeks or 3 to 4 days, some even just a couple hours before. And this is just a reactive way of being spiritual that you do not create long-term light from this. It's funny because when I was talking in the beginning about Gemini, one of the things, the tendencies that Geminis have that I don't know if we want to borrow this month or ever. Yeah, no. What are the positive and the negatives of the Geminis so that people can see this inside themselves? Okay, so Geminis are excellent communicators. They have very quick minds. They are really good at amassing information, not necessarily on a deep level, but they know... You mean to learn? They love learning. And if you have Gemini in your astrological chart in certain places, it actually helps you have a better memory. have a better grasp on facts and ideas. There's a lot of interesting, I've done some research on that as well, but the hallmark qualities of great, those great qualities of a Gemini is really about communicating, being able to be in two places at once, being able to read other people well. Think about the planet Mercury is also the element of Mercury, which if you've ever broken a mercury thermometer, the mercury scatters and is all over the place and you can't ever hope to possibly get it back in that tube again. It's like that all over the place. Mercury is the fastest planet, has the fastest orbit around the sun. So that quickness is, I think, is something that many of us can benefit from. On the other side of the coin, they can be very superficial. They can be, sorry guys, we say that with a lot of love. They can be two-faced or eight-faced, right? They have different not personalities, but they can be up and down.
Compartmentalize?
Yes, but I think one of the things that's difficult about being close to a Gemini is you don't know what mood they're going to be in or how they're going to be, and part of it is knowing it's not you, it's them. They're just like a polygon, turning different faces to different people at different times. They're known for being a jack of all trades, but master of none, that they know a little about a lot of things, but not a lot about any one thing. And again, that ability to kind of see angles of things increases their propensity for criticism. Now, why does a typical person criticize? What puts us in those critical behaviors is usually fear or feeling unworthy. And a couple of weeks ago, Daniel was on the podcast, Daniel Naor, and he spoke about the essential work of knowing our value, knowing that we are deserving, just being, just not doing, but just simply being is a form of sharing. And I've been doing a lot of reading these last few months about different, motivators, what motivates people to do different things. And the truth is that shame is one of the biggest causes, I think, for negative interactions between people. When we feel good about ourselves, Brene Brown, I don't know if you've ever read any of her books or seen any of her talks. She's really an excellent communicator also. I wonder if she might be Gemini, but she's what she calls a shame researcher. Like she is a shame investigator. And what she found is that when people feel good about themselves, they have no interest in what anyone else is doing wrong. But it's in the areas where we feel we are falling short that we tend to criticize. Well,
can you go deeper in that?
Yes.
So that people can relate to shame in our own lives. For
sure. Parenting is a big area for this.
Give an example.
One of the things, if you're a parent, and you don't even have to be a parent to see this, it's enough to have had parents to see this, is that there's a lot of shaming that goes on between parents.
Shaming themselves or shaming the kids?
Well, no, not the kids, other parents.
Oh,
mom shaming.
Okay, mom shaming. All right. So, what is mom shaming for the guys out there who don't know that?
We can bring it to
but give us examples.
Wider demographic after. She feeds her kids those snacks, or there's no routine at their household, and or she's a helicopter mom. She should really chill out.
This is more of an internal judgment, right? It's not like moms are saying it to the other moms.
No, they do. Oh, they do. We're not talking about spiritual moms, of course, but I think
it's probably worse among spiritual moms because you see more of what people are doing wrong.
Well, I think
that is one of the dangers of spirituality is you start to realize there's 100 other things that other people should be doing that they're not doing.
Well, but here's the caveat. When you feel good about yourself as a parent, your tendency to feel good about other people's raises.
I see. So you have more empathy for what other people are doing. You're not necessarily judging them about what they should or shouldn't be doing.
We talk about on the Weekly Energy Boost the whole idea that if you see something that bothers you in someone else,
you have to look inside yourself.
Exactly.
It's either a mirror or a trigger of something that's going on inside of you.
So that, again, flip it, and it works the same way. When I see the good in me, it helps me see the good in others. When I'm connected to my intrinsic value, I'm going to be able to recognize the intrinsic value of the people around me.
I see. So when I'm in a place where I'm self-judging, criticizing, that could either be because I'm not doing something I should be doing. I'm making mistakes. Maybe something happened to me in the past and I think I'm less than. There's traumas that make people feel like they're damaged. All of these things of feeling less or lack translates into my shaming and judgment of other people, is what you're saying.
Even more so, I would take it even a step further, that if I am feeling, look, I'm the worst mom, right? This is the way that Brene Brown explains it works. I'm sitting here feeling I'm the worst mom. And then I go into this mode of personalizing it on other people. Look at her. She can't even get her kids out of that. Look at how late they're showing up to school. Like, it becomes this shame fest. I'm not the only one, right? So it's like this, if I'm feeling criticized, and we've spoken about, I can even hear you using this example, at work, your boss comes home and criticizes you, and you come home and you criticize your wife and your kids.
It's so true. I've seen this so many times. When we get hurt or abused, it's very easy then to take it out on other people. I remember often one time, like maybe getting an email or a text message that often feels like maybe it puts you out of control, or if it makes you feel hurt, or it makes you feel like worried and anxious. And I've seen even myself at that exact moment, if there's a kid in the room or someone else in the room and they ask me something, I automatically feel I have a desire to want to snap at them because I was just snapped at. So it's very easy to transfer energy. As you're receiving it, you want to immediately give it. It's very hard to go through some kind of filtering or some kind of internal transformation when you're getting pain from the outside.
Right.
And we think about it, most people go through this throughout the day, through their work or whatever. Like, you're going to work.
Mindlessly.
I'm sorry?
Mindlessly, just responding like to every single attack, trigger, button push all day long.
Right. Well, what's happening is I want people who are listening to kind of think like throughout your day, where are you getting this abuse, this hurt, this criticism, or this negative energy? And it can happen in the most subtle ways. It could be in the carpool lane, at school. So many things. It can be people doing something that's unfair to you. It can be a project you've been working on for a long time. Someone else is taking credit for it. All of these things we feel slighted, or it's a form of abuse to us. And as a result, we will bring that home. We will bring that to the people that we love. And I think that all of us don't have a strong enough muscle to be able to take hurt and pain and not transfer that to other people. And it's a plague, because that's how the virus spreads. But can you, instead of being a host for the virus, right, develop the antibodies, develop the almost the vaccine, because high consciousness is a vaccine for when somebody treats you poorly or a result doesn't go your way. Immediately you have the antibodies to fuse that and to transform that, so you don't have to transfer the virus to someone else.
Right. And one of the big discoveries, I'll call it, in this shame research is that criticism is actually armor that comes up, so that those feelings of unworthiness, inadequacy, desperation don't have to be felt.
Is it because now I feel like we're all in the same boat?
No, it actually creates, again, that sense of superiority. Yeah, I'm terrible, but these people are really the worst.
I see. So I can't be that bad if these people are worse.
It takes the edge off the pain when I'm focused on other people's inadequacies and not my own.
No, okay. So it's
like a numbing mechanism.
It is a numbing mechanism. That's very powerful. We all, just to be practical on this podcast, everyone should think for a moment about ways that they tear people down or break them down, either through thoughts, words, and actions. And what is that numbing inside of us? Because everybody knows that we love building people up and we love tearing them down. We love building them up because we feel like we're givers.
That's reality TV in a nutshell.
Right.
We tune in because we there's something gratifying about seeing people get torn down.
Well, there's something gratifying about supporting people who are maybe disadvantaged and they worked hard, and we cheer them on and we wish them well and they become successful. However, when they become happy from that success and they become great, a part of us becomes, what's the word? Not skeptical, but a part of us becomes, God, it's on the tip of my tongue. This word that, I can't think of the word, but at that point, we're thinking that we would like them to fall because now they're getting too high up. They're higher than me. Now something must be wrong with me because I'm not as high as they are. And this is constantly, we like equilibrium, or we like people to be lower than us so that we can feel in control and feel like the giver, even if it's somebody on TV. That's very powerful.
Well, I think this is also a really good opportunity if we're trying to take advantage of the positive Gemini qualities and nullify or tamp down on the negative ones. One of the hardest things about transforming the critical tendency is to realize that if you're criticizing others, you also have a harsh critic within. That self-critic is actually the root of the problem. And to hear that, and maybe I should say it in a different way so that it reaches as many people as possible. But the truth is, if you are judging and criticizing and hard on other people, the person you are hardest on is you. And when you start being more kind and compassionate and loving toward yourself, speaking to yourself the way you would a close friend or a sibling or someone you love deeply, that's the whole inner child work, by the way, that at some point when we were growing up, we felt we had to grow up quickly, shut down. We had to, put our feelings away, or we couldn't be our true selves or express our needs. And there is this child inside us that is trembling in the corner still. And if we can just practice being that loving parent to ourselves, we will, going back to the playground example, if you look at your shortcomings or your areas for growth as a parent or as a partner or as an employee or anything else, if you give that guidance to yourself lovingly, if you compassionately identify your areas for growth, you're going to turn that compassionate eye toward everyone that you see. But it starts with you.
So I got this powerful image as you said this, and just to show like how behind the scenes, you're not just talking, you're doing the work. I pray every morning with a group of guys, and I pray with your husband. And I hope it's okay that I share this, but I see when he's praying, he has a lot going on in front of him. He has a lot of like meditations, but he has a picture, and I realize it's a picture of him as a child. He has a picture of himself as a child that he's meditating on. Did you know this? That he's meditating, I hope I'm not embarrassing him, but he's praying and meditating on for a whole hour. I find that to be so inspiring because what he's doing is I guess this is what he's doing. He's infusing in the child version of himself, right? This energy that obviously, because we know there's no time, space, and motion, affects him today. As when you go back in time to make the child version of yourself whole, it makes the adult version of yourself more fulfilled as you grow up. Did you knew about this? Is there any secret you can share with us of the background of that?
Well, I think that forgiveness, looking at the youth and innocence we once had, then being able to observe the breaking down of that sweetness and purity and goodness, and then reconnecting it. Right? Realizing, and this to me is a big part of the process of de-shamifying ourselves, is whatever decisions I made when I was in that position, the way that I responded or reacted, I was doing the best that I could. I know that many times we talk about, when you look at an event in the past, we need to know it was exactly the way it needed to be. Yeah, I want to learn some lessons so that I don't find myself back there again. But if I was already there, it's an indication that it was exactly what I needed, where I needed to be. And it's exactly what got me to where I am today, for better or worse. So part of that is also recognizing I was doing my best, right? That kid who was bullied and now has low self-esteem in their 30s or 40s, I dealt with that when I was a kid the best way I knew how. And now through my shifting in consciousness and transforming the way I look at what happened then, I actually elevate that experience so it no longer hinders me. It's no longer a source of trauma or scarring. It's now a source of love and compassion, and it's making me more connected to my true essence, which has nothing to do with unworthiness or shamefulness or any of that. So I think it's a good time to mention to our listeners that this is not something that you hear once and it inspires you and then you move on from life. This is a daily practice, right? To your point, David, that prayer, but the meditations, it's an every morning thing. It's not I did it once and now I'm free. And David and I are starting a course with Eitan Yardeni, one of our colleagues who's been on Weekly Energy Boost before. We're starting a Kabbalah One course, a global online Zoom on June 7th. You can go to weeklyenergyboost.com to get all the details and sign up there. But that's really where you begin to learn how to deliberately and mindfully break the patterns that we're talking about. It is not instant. It's not a cup of noodles. It doesn't happen in 2 minutes. It happens it's a slow cook. And I like that metaphor also because as you cook something, 99% of foods soften as they cook. The proteins break down. And part of being in a spiritual community that's growing in consciousness and mindfulness and in practice is softening. The harsh critic inside of each one of us is tough, is prickly. Is that harshness comes from not remembering, not pausing and saying, what's really happening here? Not pausing and turning inward and saying, what's going on inside me that's making me want to lash out, snap at people I love, burn bridges, get me fired, and all these things that we do when that wounded animal is lashing out. That's a biological response, by the way, that we can interrupt. We can train ourselves. The soul, what you'll learn in these classes with us is that if you allow it, the soul can dictate what the body does rather than the body taking over and dictating what the soul is. And the body is where that animalistic tendency is to run or to attack or to retaliate. And the Kabbalists gave us the antidote for that thousands of years ago. When you sit in these classes, all you're doing is you're going back and you're retraining your body to do what your soul does naturally.
How do people register for this? And is it free? Are we charging this time, or is it
pay what you can? It's pay what you can. We're going to have
pay what you can afford.
Right. And so there is
all of this goes to charity, obviously.
Right. There's a recommended donation, I think it's $150, but if you can afford to pay more, that's great. If you can't afford to pay that, that's also great.
And when you pay more, you subsidize for other people.
Exactly.
Obviously, just Elishev and I, we work for a nonprofit, and all we do is for charity. And so the stuff that we put out there is not for profit or gain. We want to help people, and we open the Kabbalah One, which is the most powerful course that we teach, probably once or twice a year, streaming across the world. And if you've enjoyed our content and you're getting benefit from the podcast, I promise you Kabbalah One will change your life. If somebody wanted to register for it, they just go to the website?
We'll put the website both in the show details. We'll put it on our website, weeklyenergyboost.com, in our LinkedIn, on Instagram and Facebook. It's everywhere. Wherever you're listening right now, it's right there in front of you.
Most likely on the homepage of Kabbalah.com.
It is exactly on the homepage of Kabbalah.com, but if it's easier for you to remember, it's on our homepage as well. And that's it's not a 10-week course. It is don't tell me. It is a 10-week course. It is a 10-week course. And there's so much support that's given in there. You're part of a smaller group that you're going to do workshops and breakout groups together. You'll have the opportunity to get workshopped on camera with us. There's a chat that you can participate in during the class. It's interactive. There's so much supplemental material for you to dig into. And I know that many of you have taken Kabbalah One before. If you have any friends around the world that you think can benefit from this wisdom, do it with them. No matter where you live, you can do it together because it's streaming on Zoom. You don't have to walk into a physical building to do it. And it's really something that can help not only the people in your lives grow closer to their fullest potential, but to grow as friends and as family members and as people, who are out there trying to do their best and make a difference in the world. David, last thoughts?
Oh, just the takeaway from this week is don't try to boil the ocean with your spirituality. Take it 1 second at a time. Just increase the positive consciousness through your thoughts, words, and actions, and do your best to just diminish one step at a time. And even if you mess up, it's okay. Because at any moment that you can transform negative consciousness or not make a comment from lack or fear, you're revealing tremendous light in your life and in the world.
Absolutely. Weekly Energy Boost is available on all podcast platforms, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. As we mentioned before, weeklyenergyboost.com is our website where you can find our archives and read about all the things that we think are interesting and important for our listeners to know about. You can also support our podcast by clicking the donate button at weeklyenergyboost.com. And as always, the best way that you can support us is to share this episode. And if you're listening on the podcast apps, take a moment to rate and review. That helps us get out in front of more screens, more eyes, and of course, more hearts and souls. Thank you for all that you're doing to get us out there. And we'll see you next week on the Weekly Energy Boost.